Zippers, not an uncommon topic when you think about sewing, but before you gulp thinking about the last time you stitched in a lap zipper, take a deep breath. We're taking a carefree approach to zippers, stitching stress-free zipper creations. Mary Malari, one of the frequent guests on Sewing with Nancy and one of our favorite designers, is here to present her latest ideas on zippers.
Zippers, Nancy, I think of them as decorative, not just functional. Our first project features zipper loop flowers. You'll learn how to cut a zipper open, remove the head, separate the sides, and reattach the zipper head, creating a loop.
Stress-free zipper creations, that's what's coming up next on Sewing with Nancy.
Sewing with Nancy, TV's longest-airing sewing and quilting program with Nancy Zieman, is made possible by Baby Lock, a complete line of sewing, quilting, and embroidery machines and sergers. Baby Lock, for the love of sewing. Madeira, specializing in embroidery, quilting, and special effect threads, because creativity is never black and white. Koala Studios, fine sewing furniture custom built in America. Clover, makers of sewing, knitting, quilting, and embroidery products for over 25 years. Experience the Clover difference. And amazing designs and Class A needles.
The first thing that we're going to show you is how to change the zipper, create a loop, and Mary, you're going to cut it apart.
That's right, Nancy, with old scissors. That's important. And I've already done that here on this sample where I've cut off the end stops, and the bottom. And now we're free to open the zipper and separate it into two sections.
And normally that would kind of be a fearful thing.
Yeah, it would be, but we don't have to worry because we can feed that head back onto one side of the zipper tape.
It goes on very easily on one side, but then on the other side, to make the loop, you've done some trimming.
I've cut away about 1/4 of an inch of the zipper teeth, and now there's a little end, and we're going to slide that on. And you know, this is a project that is not difficult, and you try it a few times, and it will come easily when you grab two ends.
There we go.
And then you make the loop. And sometimes the loop wants to turn, but when we sew those loops down, the curve goes away.
And because you're removing the zipper tab, you can interchange them. That makes it kind of fun.
Yes, it does. We're using, too, Nancy, all standard zipper lengths here for this program, so some people might have some on hand.
Yeah, that's right. And you may have unusual colors, and this would be a great place to use them. And sometimes when they come in a package, they have lots of
Yes,
bends
they have folds, and it's important to flatten them out, press them before using them for any of the projects.
So now that you've made some loops, you can see how you're going to make this zipper pedal. And we are simply going to place small ends around a stem, and this stem was about 9 inches.
That's right. You started with a 16-inch zipper, and I cut off 9 inches, and then the remaining zipper was used to make the leaves on the stem.
We're not going to waste any part of this zipper, and then you can stitch. And the best part about all the projects that you'll see in this show is that you really don't need a special zipper foot, just a traditional foot.
That's the best.
So here's a close-up of how we just stitch the zipper tape down around the pedal, changing the needle position so it makes it easy. And then you'll see that we have a sample already stitched.
These loops are in place, and I've used contrasting thread to hold them down. And then we cut out a 2-inch circle of suede-like fabric, and then I like the pinking shear edge too, and then that will be sewn over the center. But we have one other step to turn this into a unique project, and that is to make a pocket. And that zipper is open, and so on the back of our other sample,
let's go in here. There we go.
There's the lining for the pocket. And back here, we can show how we cut the back of the zipper open.
And that's just a raw edge.
That's correct. And then we cut a piece of fabric that's larger than the flower shape, because then we're going to sew it down and use clear thread so that we have an invisible seam.
I never realized when you first showed me this project that it had a pocket in here, even though because you've used clear thread. So what a great thing. And then you added a little grass attachment to the bottom, and all the raw edges were covered.
That's right.
A carefree, fun thing. Then we have a starburst zipper, and you've used zipper ends for this next zipper embellishment.
We have one here on the apron, and we have 7 zipper heads, about 2 inches of zipper teeth, and the ends of those are also covered again by a suede circle. But Nancy, I put this together on a piece of stabilizer because I wasn't sure originally where I'd place it. So I drew a 1.5 inch circle on stabilizer. I did some stitching at the ends of the zippers to prevent the heads from sliding off accidentally, and then circle over the top.
And another great carefree zipper creation.
Here's a stress-free way to attach a zipper and then create a handy storage bag. This time the zipper loop is both functional and decorative.
You're going to hear those terms used in tandem, functional and decorative, and so applicable to cosmetic bags with the loop zipper at the top, an extension of the loop zipper, any size or shape, or even just a zipper handle. Mary, this can be made almost any size.
That's right. My samples are 6 by 8, but you can cut the fabrics to any size, and I've serged the edges. I'll next sew together the 2 pieces at the 6-inch side, and I have the next sample to show how I've pinned a zipper over the top edge, and that's just the single side of the zipper. And here it's sewn onto the fabric. I used 2 rows of stitching to make it really nice and secure. I have the zipper head on, and now we'll work to slide it onto the other side, just as we did for the zipper loop flowers that we just showed. And we grab both ends and it zips up just like that.
Just like that. And that zipper end, because you had to have a little notch cut out and you need some security.
That's right. So we have a piece of fabric that just a small little patch, and we're going to sew that over the end to cover up all our mistakes or whatever, and that's stitched there, and then that will allow us on the back side to cut away some of the excess zipper teeth when we sew up the side seam to get rid of the bulk.
Be sure you use those craft scissors again so that it isn't quite so hard on your scissors. And then you're going to sew the side seam, and I like this little pleat idea.
This is a 1-inch pleat that's then sewn up.
Just fold it up 1 inch.
And then when we turn this right side out, we have some dimension created so the bag stands up when we place it. We place our cosmetics or whatever in the bag. We push out the corners, and now it's no longer flat, and it has this ability to stand up.
And the zipper loop bag can be zipped up. Another no stress zipper creation. Not all tote bags have to be large. Carry your electronic reading device in a right-sized tote that stashes in a corner zipper pocket. It's another stress-free zipper loop project with zipper handles and even a zipper loop closure as added features. Well, you just saw how the tote carried the reading device, but when you're not using the tote, it can be conveniently stored within the triangular zipper pocket, and then presto, you have a cute little tote, and made out of nylon fabric is really convenient, Mary.
And then we close it if we want with a loop and a large button to hold the loop in place.
There you go.
So it's kind of a surprise for what comes out of the pocket. So we build the pocket first.
Let's start with that.
It's a 7-inch square of fabric, and I've added interfacing to the back. And now I cut it in half diagonally, and I'm going to sew it together with 2 of the 7-inch edges.
There you go.
And add a 1/4-inch seam allowance, and then I end up with a piece that looks like this. And this is the piece to which we'll add a zipper, one side of the tape only, and this is approximately 17 inches long, and that will go, ideally go to the end of the corner.
Sure. But you have the coil upward.
Yes, that's right. And next, our sample shows that I've actually zigzag stitched this in place with a little pleat in the upper corner.
Exactly. And then you're going to be sewing it to the pocket together, the remaining side.
And adding that zipper head as well before we do that.
Oh yes, that would be slightly important.
That's right. And so our next sample shows that we've done that, and the zipper head is added, and we're ready to turn this right side out. Of course, we trim the corner with our craft scissors again to get rid of all the excess zipper tape and fabric. And now we've created our corner pocket.
For the tote, as Mary's turning this right side out, you'll need to cut 2 pieces of fabric that are 9 by 12. And this sample has been sewn with 1/4 of an inch seams on 2 of the sides. And then you turn this to the right side. and insert the corners, match the corners.
And we leave that side open just for easy access because we want to next sew on the zipper to the bag.
Now here you can see I've pinned the pocket to the tote and just using a traditional machine, traditional foot, and top stitch the pocket into place. Then after you've top stitched this section on, you might have to start at one corner, go around to the other. Here is, Mary, your next step.
That's right. And of course we're going to go about finishing the tote by sewing up this final seam, turning the bag right side out, and then it's pretty much traditional assembly of a tote. But this time the handles, Nancy, I combined 2 zipper tape colors. And I've made the handle to sew on the edge of the tote. I have a second handle to add. And then, of course, we're going to anchor this all together by sewing, top stitching on the top edge of the tote.
It's really a clever way to use zippers and fabric.
With 4 18-inch zippers and 2 yards of fabric, create a clever picnic tote. When the zippers are open, the tote becomes a tablecloth with pocket storage. It's magical.
You really wouldn't think at first glance that this is made out of 2 36-inch squares and 4 zippers, but when we unzip the zippers and release the ponytail holder loop and button, we have the picnic table.
Well, this is
Not
one
the
side
table,
of it.
perhaps the tablecloth.
That's
yes.
right. This side has the zippers in this interesting formation, and the back has the pockets where we put silverware and napkins for our picnic.
So cut 2 30-inch squares, square up the fabric, and you're going to create it into quarters, but folding it diagonally, first in half and then in quarters. And press mark the folds, which we have done.
And it's important to press these as accurately as you can and to then place some marks on the fabric.
Start at the center fold.
And we're going to measure 6 inches centered across the center fold. And those marks are placed. And then we measure down the other fold to 19 inches. And we have our black mark here to show that. And at that point, we're going to mark 2 other marks 3 inches across the center.
Now you'll find all of these instructions in the book that accompanies today's program, so you can get the measurements down. And the second side of this, you do the same thing.
And now we're going to draw lines to connect our dots, and the line comes from each 6-inch point down to the 3-inch measure at the bottom. And this is our guide for the zippers.
So we'll each use a zipper and place it at the fold and one edge along the drawn edge and pin. And Mary, we're going to share the pin cushion.
We're using short applique pins. I like these, Nancy, for this project because we can get in a lot of pins, and particularly for the second step of this, when we're going to curve our zipper tape, the short pins are handy.
Okay, so you'd pin one side of these down, and then this side is going to curve, but the curve is created with a very important sewing notion.
That's right, and we're going to show on our next sample how we achieve that curve.
A dinner plate.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's right.
Yes.
And it's very handy. You just go into the kitchen, and when the zipper is open to about 3 inches from the bottom.
Okay, I'll show you 3 inches.
And then we're going to place our dinner plate. This is approximate, Nancy, but then that allows us to draw the curve, which has been
Already drawn.
Yeah, I'll draw.
How about that?
And so now that's our guide for stitching down the second, pinning first and stitching down the second side of the zipper. And again, our applique pins will do that for us. And over on this side, we have the second side of the zipper sewn into place.
So to the single layer fabric, if you like doing this, you're going to do 2 more on the mirror image on the second side of this.
And we're going to add some small ovals of fabric to cover the zipper ends as well.
These are faux suede, synthetic suede, and on our finished sample, you can see how Mary has done the stitching. And let's get it the way we just stitched it. There we go. And you can see that these suede ends cover the fabric. On the opposite side, we have leftover fabric for pockets. And you saw earlier how you zip it up, add a button, as well as a closure, and you have a unique picnic tote. Combine a collection of fat quarters and zippers to sew this colorful bag with unique expanding handles, zipper piping, and a pleated cell foam pocket. You'll use zippers in 4 unique ways. Not only has Mary used 4 zipper treatments, but you've used 5 fabrics.
That's right. It's fun to collect these together and see what you can do to create an interesting, unique bag.
And remember, fat quarters are those pieces of fabric that are 18 by 22, and the pattern comes with the booklet that accompanies today's program, and we're going to specialize in the construction of the zipper areas so that everyone can see how that's created.
The first is the cell phone pocket on the front. It has dimension in it because we've started with a 5 by 8 inch piece of fabric, and we make folds in it so it sizes down to 4 inches in width. We'll turn under the edges of the fabrics by pressing, and then we're going to sew that to the center of a zipper that will go across the top front of the purse, or 1.5 inches below the top edge. That will be
centered.
the placement.
I don't think I have it centered. And then top stitch across the top of the zipper, and then here you can see just sewing the lower portion of the zipper tape, rounding the corner, and then sewing the cell pocket into place. And you have made, with short order, a pocket.
With some dimensions so your cell phone will fit inside.
Well, speaking of dimension, we have handles that are dimensional and have a little place for storage. So here
It's
we
kind
go.
of a surprise when you open the zipper to find perhaps a little pocket for keys or change. I've used 2 different colored zippers just because I could. They're both 22 inches in length, and you can store something a little extra in them.
Now here are the dimensions for those straps.
The top piece here is 3 inches in width and 22 inches in length, and our little pocket piece is 3 inches by 4 inches with the edges turned back and stitched down.
So just one lower edge has been stitched and the top edge has been cleaned finished. So 3 by 22.
And then the other piece is 6 inches wide and 22 inches long. And we're going to meet the right sides together to sew these pieces into a tube. Now they don't match, so we end up having a bit of a pleat there. And our next sample shows how this handle looks at this point with our seams. This is the pocket edge down here.
Sure, it's just wider, and then when you turn this right side out, which you have done, Mary.
This next sample shows how the wider fabric extends out on the sides. I think that's a neat look.
Oh, it is, but now we can make that a kind of a hidden area.
We're going to sew one edge of the zipper to one side of our trimmed handle, and there again we use our standard presser foot and straight stitch down. And then our next sample shows how we've done that on one edge, and then you simply take the second edge and bring it over to the other side of the handle and pin it down, and then sew that. Again, stress-free.
Yeah, very much so. In this sample, Mary has attached the handles to the top of the bag, and then they're going to be met together.
And we're going to use a little piece of fabric to connect the 2 zipper handles. And we wrap that around the ends and sew that closed, and it's a very neat look.
You know, earlier in the program we made those zipper loops, and you have half of the zipper that you may not be using right now. Well, you use it as piping.
Here we have another sample of the piping, the zipper sewn to the top edge.
And then we used 1 extra loop and a button for a closure. And now you use 4 zipper techniques on a tote.
Zippers are the star feature of scissors or a USB stick lanyard. Framed with whimsical ribbon, one long zipper produces the lanyard feature.
Use a 22-inch zipper and some ribbon. First of all, sew the zipper ends together, overlap, and then frame around the zipper with some fun ribbon and top stitch.
This is again an easy sewing technique, and we can finish it off with another piece of ribbon at the bottom and add the USB stick.
But if you'd like to make a holder for the scissors, Mary has an idea of working with a 5-inch square.
I've ruled this off diagonally, and I'm going to cut out one corner of this 5-inch square, as I've done here. This time this is 2 charm squares that are fused together. I'll place that extra corner here and sew across the bottom, and then I'm going to fold this back, add a pin, which of course would actually be sewing, and then with a little bit of tape to hold this together, we have a scissors holder to add to our lanyard.
creative people rarely stop creating. Well, that may seem like an obvious statement. When a quilter or sewer presents an innovative technique to me, I know that more artistic tips will soon follow. That was the case with Karen Landuska. Karen was my guest last season during the two-part decorative stitch thread painting series. Karen's newest techniques combine texture, stitching, as well as personal greetings. Karen, when we worked together before, you were working with larger pieces for wall art, wall hangings.
Right.
Now your pieces have shrunk in size and they're very equally as interesting.
Well, I start out with, they're needle felted on this craft felt. And you can get this craft felt at any craft shop, wherever. And I use it as my base. So it eliminates the stabilizer and the quilt batting, is what we used in the last projects.
So you did the stitching, the felting on the foam and the craft foam, and then they can become personal greetings.
Right.
Postcards, they can go right through the mail.
Right, yeah, you can mail those. They need to be hand canceled, and sometimes they require a little bit more postage, but they go through the mail fine. And some of these I did fabric background, and then I did a paper background, and I also have note cards that I'll show in a minute.
What a great way of trying out a technique. You know, decorative stitch thread painting is a fun technique, but you don't have to work in such a large medium.
Well,
or
it's
large
so
surface.
detailed that it's nice to work small, because then you can work quickly. I use a lot of scrap fabric.
And stitches and felt and a felter, needle felter.
Right, a needle felter.
So why don't you just explain? Here you can see the craft foam on the back, and this is a note card that Karen has placed
Here's
this on.
another one.
And let me just place this over here. Sure.
So what I do is I usually start out with some type of a yarn that I needle felt in maybe a grid pattern, and then I'll layer organza or other types of shears.
Sure.
And then I needle felt that down, and then this particular one and some of the other ones I use antique lace.
You can see that in the background. What an
Right.
interesting texture.
So that creates my background, and then I start, once I get my main fabric down, then I start the decorative stitch thread painting.
Now, what we really like about Karen's work is that she uses a traditional decorative stitches, but then elongates them, shortens them,
I alter the stitch.
change the stitches. And if we look at close-up at some of these stitches, almost every sewing machine is able to do this, but you wouldn't find it on your guide. It would look different because you've
Right.
changed the length and the width.
Right, and each machine's going to alter it a little bit different. So even if you use the same stitch, it'll be a little bit different looking.
We all have scraps. I mean, lots of scraps. And you can see that Karen has used just bits and pieces of fabric. And then what a great way to send a personal greeting.
Right.
Birthday cards, thank you cards.
Right, and you can even use your alphabet and
Oh.
write letters. I haven't done that on any of these examples, but you could. I've done Valentine ones and birthday, and you can personalize it with names.
So the
things like
important
that.
thing is that the foam, the craft foam, is the stabilizer and the batting.
Right, correct.
So that all the layers go on, you're stitching through all layers.
Yeah, and I found that the needle felter and the regular sewing machine will go right through the craft felt. That it doesn't have any problem at all. So
And what about needle sizes? Do you do some changing there? Or?
I just use the standard 90. So that works good.
So if you were to give someone guidance on doing this, you would say first do the background.
Right.
And that can be lace, it can be organza, it could be...
When you use the shears, they bunch up a lot more.
Yeah, here's a
so
shear.
it'll get more concentrated. And you can get a really nice solid effect of color with those. And then I sometimes will start stitching on top of the background, and then I'll add whatever image I'm going to do, whether it's a tree or a flower.
Great. Well, these are lovely. Just
thank you.
Just lovely. And if you'd like to find out more about Karen's work, you can go to Nancy's Corner at the sewingwithnancy.com site. Click on Nancy's Corner, and the 2400 series will have all of the information that we have for this series in the Nancy's Corner. Karen, thank you for being our guest.
Well, thank you for having me back.
And thanks for joining us on Sewing with Nancy for this program on No Stress Zipper Creations with Mary Malari. This has been a very creative program, learning how to use zippers in a non-traditional way, and now how to work with thread and texture and to send personal greetings through the mail with your art of stitching. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now.
Mary Malari has written a fully illustrated book entitled Stress-Free Zipper Creations that serves as the reference for this program. It's $14.99 plus shipping and handling. To order the book, call 800-336-8373 or visit our website at sewingwithnancy.com/2420. Order item number MP41, Stress-Free Zipper Creations, credit card orders only. To pay by check or money order, call the number on the screen for details. Visit Nancy's website at sewingwithnancy.com for more information on this program. Sewing with Nancy, TV's longest-airing sewing and quilting program with Nancy Zieman, has been brought to you by Baby Lock, Madeira Threads, Koala Studios, Clover, Amazing Designs, and Classe Needles. Closed captioning funding provided by Rowenta. Sewing with Nancy is a co-production of Nancy Zieman Productions and Wisconsin Public Television.